So hi guys, today we're going to be reviewing the Cryx Battle Group. This is the undead faction for the Iron Kingdoms and for Warmachine. They contain some of the nastiest and most villainous of the characters that the Iron Kingdoms has ever seen. So let's have a look at the front here, and we can see that we have Warwitch Denegra, a Slayer, 2 Death Rippers, and a Defiler in this box. So this actually has one more Warjack in it than many of the other battle boxes, and you'll see why in a second when we come to discuss it. So there we go, let the Iron Kingdoms fall by your hand. So let's get straight away into what's in the box so that we can get on to building these things. So again, we have our quick start rules. If you haven't seen the quick start rules, then please go to our Khador unboxing where we discuss those in a bit more detail. Then first out we have Warwitch Denegra. Again, these are all individually boxed, which isn't bad. These have some very fiddly pieces in it, again, but there doesn't seem to be as many this time as there have been in a couple of the other boxes, like the Cygnar box or the Menoth box. So for Denegra, we have the body here, which, as you can see, is quite a nice sculpt. The cloth effect is nice and layered, and there's some very nice, very tidy details on the torso there. Here we have our spear. It's a tiny bit bent, but we can fix that with our hot water trick, so that's not too bad at all. We can get that sorted out. You'll see if anybody has seen the metal box version of this, one of the problems I always had with it was that the spear that Denegra had was actually square rather than round. So that's been fixed. This is a much more smarter looking javelin rather than the large polearm that you had in the metal version. So here's just her other arm and a couple of spikes for the back and her head. So we'll take that out of the way. And next up we have one of the light jacks. Let's see which one this is. Oh, this looks like it's the Defiler. Okay, the Defiler, of course, we can recognise by the fact that it has a nozzle in its head which sprays acid at the opponent. So we'll just get that into focus there for you. You can have a look. These light jacks for Cryx only come in a couple of parts, so they're going to be really easy to put together. Really nice and simple. So if you're new to the hobby or new to putting these sorts of models together, this type of box is probably going to be one of the easiest ones for you to have a go at. So that's the Defiler. Next we have the 2 Death Rippers. Now the Death Rippers are the close combat type of light jack for Cryx. They're both the same. So, oops, the other bag that we have here has the same stuff in it. So we'll not bother taking that out. But so it has exactly the same as this one, which again has only a few pieces in it. There's the 2 parts for the head, the body, and 2 legs. Now, like I say, this is the close combat version of the Defiler. So instead of having a spray, this one just bites and hangs on, and really just rips into whatever it attacks. So well, it's not one of the most powerful jacks and not one of the most powerful melee jacks. It's very cheap. It's only about 4 points in the game to buy. So filling up on these guys is going to be one of the tactics for Cryx. All the light jacks for Cryx all come with arc nodes, which we discussed previously in our Cygnar video. But just to go over it again, an arc node allows for a warcaster to cast a spell as though they're standing in the same position as the warjack, which is really good for Cryx because Cryx are one of the heaviest spell factions in the game. So finally then, we have our Slayer. And the Slayer comes in another, it's got a couple of tiny pieces in here. There's a couple of thumbs for the arms. So as you can see, the arms there are quite jagged and talon-like. So they're actually called death claws in the game. So they're used for tearing apart your enemy. So that's one arm, and here's the other arm. Much the same. Say that finger is going to be slotted into the middle claw there. There's the head. sort of insect-like, but with a pair of horns on it. The Slayer itself comes with 3 weapons. It's got both its death claws on its arms, and it also has its tusks on its head, which it can headbutt things with and gore them to death. So it's quite a vicious melee type attacking jack. It's also very fast and a bit more difficult to hit than many of the other heavy jacks, but has slightly less armor because of that. Cricks like to make some of their warjacks with bones instead of metal, so that's part of the reason why they have less armor, but another part of the reason why they're lighter and a lot faster and a lot harder to hit. So here's the main body, and the 2 legs, and the 2 shoulder pieces. Now these shoulder pieces look like they're going to be articulated, so hopefully we'll be able to get some nice posability on this Slayer. Okay, so the only thing left in the box then are the cards, but we'll go through the cards as soon as we've got everything assembled and put together. So I'll take these away now and I'll put them together, and when I come back we'll talk about them tactically and see if we can't get some nice models for you to have a look at. Okay, so we're back. I've managed to put all these together with the help of Justin, who managed to pose our Slayer for us. And I have to say these were a lot easier than some of the other kits that we've put together. There's not a lot of posability in our light jacks, but that helped a lot when putting it together, so it really didn't take us very long, unlike the last couple, which have taken nearly an hour to put together. So let's go through and see what we can say about each one of these. We'll start off with our light jacks. We have 2 Death Rippers, so we'll put those in there. As you can see, they're pretty nice. If you have ever seen any of the metal kits of these, you'll notice that these are quite a bit bigger than the metal kits. They're pretty similar in sculpt, but the legs are a lot longer and the back exhausts are a lot taller, giving them a much more spiky and menacing look than perhaps the smaller chicken jacks, as people often call them, might have had in the previous metal sculpts. In the game, they're walking arc nodes. These are the guys that are going to channel spells for your Warcaster and allow you to extend the range of any of your attack spells or your nasty debuffing spells, which is what Cricks are particularly good at in the game. They're cheap, they're 4 points, they're the guys you want to fill up your army with in order to have lots of them, because they're a big target for any of your enemies who come across or who don't like getting shelled by your sinister corruption spells and acid spells that Cricks are particularly known for. So we'll move across and we'll go to the Defiler. You'll see that the Defiler is the same sort of sculpt as the Death Rippers, but has a different type of head. He's got the nozzle that fires a spray of acid, which can literally melt some of your enemies. It's not a particularly effective weapon, but it's great against infantry and against any warcasters who have low armor, who happen to be hiding behind larger jacks, because it fires a spray, which is a triangular template that'll hit everything underneath the template, provided you make your attack roll. So it might be worthwhile putting a focus point on one of these guys just in order to get one of those hits in. The acid spray itself causes corrosion, which is an effect that will gradually eat away at the enemy's damage boxes, but it's not a particularly powerful effect. One damage each turn is good if it's on something that only has very few damage boxes. That means infantry and small warriors and perhaps solos and things. Anything bigger than that really isn't going to worry particularly about corrosion. Okay, so moving across, we've got our Slayer now. As you can see, Justin has posed him seemingly dancing. But what the Slayer's good at, the Slayer can run in and savage anything it comes across. It doesn't have a great deal of armor, unlike something like the Khador Jack that has a big 20 armor, so it's got a solid amount. This guy's only got 17, so he's going to be suffering quite a bit more damage whenever he gets hit, and he's a lot easier to hurt. His defense is slightly higher, so he's slightly easier to hit than slightly harder to hit, I should say, than many of the other heavy jacks, but he's still going to take a lot of damage. You want this guy to be charging in as quickly as possible and getting into the action. If he hangs back at all and he starts getting hit by ranged attacks, or he starts getting hit by ranged spells, then we know that he's going to get damage taken off him. And once his weapon systems start to go, really he's not much use at all, other than as a moving sponge just to get hit. So that was our Slayer then. And finally we have our Warcaster. Now this is a much better sculpt than the original metal sculpt. The original metal sculpt I thought was just a bit rough. It was one of the very early ones that Privateer did. I said the main complaint I had was the fact that the spear was a square bar. This one, however, is absolutely lovely and was a joy to put together, I have to say. There are tiny little connections at the shoulders, which might be a bit fiddly, but a good blob of high viscosity glue will hold the joint tight, as well as which these spikes in the back are perhaps a little bit fragile should you be transporting the Mini or moving it anywhere. But you know, if you're careful with it, it should stand up to a lot of abuse. As for how to use Warwitch de Negra, now in the starter box, I have to say that I never really rated de Negra. She's more of a control type. She likes to debuff things, make them easier to hit, make her guys do more damage. Generally, sort of limit the opponent so that you're effectively making your guys better. However, in recent times, I've changed my mind after I got beaten by somebody who was playing her. Basically, she's got a very good tactic in that if you have your Slayer in with her, and you get your Slayer into melee combat with something, anything at all, preferably close to the Warcaster, she has a great spell called Ghost Walk, where she can cast it onto her Slayer, who can then immediately just run out of combat. He effectively becomes a ghost and can run through terrain, run through hills, run through houses, even run through walls, and literally just go straight for that enemy Warcaster. It's a great little tactic, and it worked well on me, I have to say. So hats off for that one. Other than that, most of her spells are simply things like reducing the opponent's abilities, reducing their stats, reducing their abilities. So she's got Crippling Grasp, which can effectively take off their speed, strength. So they're going to do less damage. They're going to be easier to hurt, and they can't move as fast. Similarly, she's got Parasite, which will reduce the enemy's armor, make them easier to hit and easier to hurt, while increasing her armor. So these guys here, again, have the arc nodes, which are essential for any type of Crix Warcaster who's going to be casting spells, because this is going to increase the range of all your spells by your by your control area, which of course is twice your focus stat. In this case, 14 inches. That's quite a long way in a game that's generally run on a 2x2 or a 4x4 board. So, taking all that into account, she is a very good Warcaster. One of the main things I actually like about this battle box is that you get a lot for your cash. Once you buy the battle box, you're actually getting almost the 15-point minimum, which you would need for even a tournament or a small size game. So I mean, basically, after this, you're only going to need to buy maybe one more, perhaps a Pistol Wraith or something like that, which is one of the solos that we'll be looking at later on in a future video. You can drop out one of the Defiler and put in your Pistol Wraith to change things up a bit and have a 15-point force. So all in all, this is a good, tricky little force to play with. Perhaps a bit difficult for the beginner, but once you've got it mastered, it certainly pays off to have all your little tricks and your little sudden surprises that you can foil your enemy with. I particularly like this, and I have to say it was actually a joy to put this one together after some of the more difficult sculpts that we've had to do for the last few unboxings. So if you enjoyed that and you want to see some more, please put some comments below for us, and we'll see what we can do for you.